Welcome back to season 3 of Skills Recharged. I'm your host, Michelle Beatty, professional development strategist. During episode 3, the conversation continues with wealth protection lawyer Toni Moore. Toni, welcome to the Career Tipper podcast.
Thank you, Miss Michelle. Thank you for having me. This is so exciting for me.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. Please tell the listeners about yourself and the work that you do.
Yes, my name is Toni. I am based in Philadelphia. I'm actually the CEO of the Moore legal firm, which for the most part, we're helping business owners pretty much build and bankroll and protect their wealth through entrepreneurship. So whether it's a business setup, whether it's buying a business or selling a business, or even helping them with their intellectual property negotiations, all the way to succession planning and estate planning. That's what my firm does. It's a boutique firm. It's more legal firm, but the brand is legally chic. So just to capture a different type of audience, especially women.
So during this episode, Toni is going to share insight on do's and don'ts of legalizing your side hustle that will help professionals keep their stride while keeping their skills recharged, competitive, and hire ready. So Toni, please share with us your journey to become, you gave us a little bit, but just go into more about you becoming a wealth protection lawyer because you are very passionate about that.
Yes, I am so passionate, maybe more than I should be. But when I'm passionate, it's for me, I'm like, maybe that's my divine assignment with regards to it, right? So when I went to law school, I graduated in 1998. I was in law school and I did this experience. It was a transactional law experience where we pretty much did transactions. I knew I was going to be a trial attorney, but I also wanted to know the transactional side, right? So in the transactional side, we were helping them with a company, a nonprofit, and trust and estate work. And I was like so enamored. I was like, oh my God, this is something that I want to do. So I wanted to do trust and estates, but I didn't know anyone. So I went, got my first job, which was to work for a Judge Allen, who's a state attorney, a state judge, right? And I told her, I said, I'm only working with you for only a year because I'm going to take over and I'm going to be a trial attorney like Johnny Cochran. She's like, okay. So I went over to a trial firm, hated it. But it was the wrong trial firm because it was defense. And I'm a very creative person and very passionate about people who are like me, who start from the bottom. I'm very passionate about us breaking through any strongholds and making any strides. So I did not like taking away, like for the most part, a defense attorney, my people would sue the firm and someone like me would defend and keep them from their rights. And I didn't like that. So I started my own law firm where I got into family law and real estate and of course business, right? And thankfully there was like 3 attorneys who pretty much helped me realize that pricing matters and marketing matters, because I was just like, I'm here to help people. And I was literally like pennies on a dollar, and everyone was like, who is this girl and what's wrong with her? Like, really? I was trying to help a sister out. But because I was so low, everyone thought something was wrong with me. So I went back to another law firm because I couldn't afford myself. And plus, my husband pretty much was like, he went to law school, you get a job. So I had to go back to another law firm, and that's where I went. So in between the two law firms and me trying to figure it out, I started I started learning more about financial planning. An attorney who was also an accountant told me about financial planning, and it really intrigued me because we didn't learn that. We just learned estate planning and business building in law school, but I was really intrigued by the whole financial planning. And what really caught my ear was that he was telling me, and I forgot her name, I think she's a Delta, founding Delta, but she was a woman, she was a service woman, a custodian, and she had a cleaning business. But her cleaning business, not an author, speaker, coach, lawyer, a cleaning business. And she set up a trust for women, African American girls, to go to college. And it just intrigued me so much that it was pretty much a woman who was janitorial, right? So all of this time, I thought that I had to be bigger, better, more with all these degrees. And this woman was a cleaning woman and she set up an endowment. And that really intrigued me. And I was like, wow. And that really stuck with me like over 25 years later. And it's still sticking with me that it wasn't an Oprah and it wasn't someone who is like Pastor TD Jake's daughter. It was someone who you least suspected. So I now am very passionate about people understanding that it's, the service gives you the money so that you can make a difference. So, and even with this business service that's giving you the money, it will now make a difference because I got into more financial planning. My first job was with Primerica Financial Services, and I got a lot of the Series 6 and 63. That's our mutual funds. And then I had a Series 26, pass that test so I can have my own financial firm. And then I had my estate planning shop. I thought I was doing a thing, okay? Estate planning on one side, financial planning on the other. But no one told me that you can't really do both. You have to separate. And I didn't have enough money to bring in more people to help me service. So eventually, after 2 years, I had to choose. And I was like, well, I'm still really passionate about law. So I shifted the direction. Instead of trying to help people, I went to get a degree in taxation. So I was already a lawyer. And then they have something called Masters in Tax, which is an LLM in taxation. So it was very interesting because I was taking this course and there was a guy, he was a white guy, right? He was an attorney, he was teaching a class, and he said something very intriguing. Now, at the time, I was at my second or third law firm, and they had asked me to take get a certificate in trust and estates. So I said, he said something that was very interesting. So I'm supposed to be at a law firm getting a certificate in trust and estates. And he said something about employee benefits. And I asked him, which one do you think I should take? Because, I'm here for trust and estate certification, where I was now servicing big time executives, right? For on behalf of the firm. He said, your people, if they're going to have wealth, it's going to be in employee benefit plans. And that really shifted something. So then that's when I started learning more about employee benefits, plans, certifications, protection and security, start taking more classes on that side of law. And then a few years ago, then I actually got into governmental regulatory with regards to it. So I was like, well, if I can't make them save money and I can't make them buy insurance and all that stuff, then I'm going to help them by making sure that no one steals the wealth that is from employee benefits. And so a few years ago, when I was still doing employee benefits regulatory, that's when it just dawned on me, listening to the author, speaker, coaches making six figures, making beyond 25,000, even in their side hustle. I was like, as a estate planning attorney who is really passionate about helping us, my people, build wealth, I want to make sure that they know the rules of the game, because without a plan, without literally a plan, or without milestones or metrics, or a financial planner, a tax attorney, or estate planning, or even a business lawyer, you're going to make all this money and then you're going to end up losing it. So that's how I started shifting along the way. And every single thing I've done, brick by brick, story by story, has been leading me now to really talk about creating a legacy of wealth. And it's not just about knowing about financial literacy. No, we need a financial acuity and a financial plan.
Yeah, you talk about that. I'm a member of your Facebook group, and you are consistently talking about the vision for establishing legacy and creating wealth. And there's differences that you share. So let's get into a little bit more about the do's. So, because I know the side hustlers have the ears like, okay, how are you going to connect the dots for me? So I want to like bring that in because I'm sure you're going to weave the two, legacy and wealth, into your shares. So let's go into the do's. So would you please share some do's that you like for the listeners to keep in mind when building their side hustle?
Yes. One of the biggies, I look at a side hustle as a business asset. When you're looking at your side hustle, not as a thing to do, but it's literally a business asset that is worthy of securing equity, right? So it is going to either secure equity for you, it's going to secure equity in your family line. You can secure equity. Prior to this conversation, I was looking at a purchase agreement for one of my clients. I was showing her the potholes in the lawn per se. Like, this is what you definitely need to worry about, like with regards to it. And so with that, she started with a side hustle. And that side hustle, when you start saving your money. Now, it's one thing you need a side hustle so that you can survive. But when you can then start using that side hustle to stack paper, and it's a process because initially my side hustle for since 1997 was an adjunct professor, and I needed it to survive. And then when I started to pretty much branch out, I'm like, okay, this is my side hustle. Then I started selling jewelry and paparazzi and teas and all that stuff. But I got really clear about, yeah, this business, and this business is going to help me build a legacy of wealth. So it helped me reduce my debt, get a better credit. Then instead of it helped me so that I did not start pimping the equity in my house. That's what I did before. It also helped me with regards to the more money I started making, I started to be able to one, put money aside because I was like, oh my God, I'm making this money. What am I going to do? So I started my own retirement plan and also my college investment for the boys. I have two sons, right? So what I know for sure, a job, you know, can be the silent investor for some people, because if you're just a business, if you're just an employee like I was, well, for the most part, all of the time that I was an employee, I always had a side hustle. And that's why we'll talk about legalizing your side hustle so that to make sure that it doesn't um, compete with your employer. That's where, but I always needed it so that I can, first of all, because I'm Bougetto and I needed an extra budget. And then I didn't want to make but so much money because then they act like they own you. They'll give you the car, they'll give you the card, you know what I mean? And then so I stayed away from too many firms that threw money at me so that I can pretty much be their, their go-to servant and that they're snapping their caw. And so I'm a big believer. Like when we're doing the financial planning, to look at your side hustle as a investment, because that business profit can go a long way. And if you do it right, you'll get a bigger rate of return from your business profit than you'll get from any mutual fund, that you'll get from any cash value whole life insurance policy, that you'll get from any stock that you're just hoping and praying that you're going to have quadruple, rate of return. It's not going to happen. Every wealthy person either married into it, either inherited, or they built the wealth themselves.
One thing you just shared was you got clear. So you got clarity and you left the teas and paparazzi jewelry alone. And then you shifted.
Mhm.
Where did that connection come from? Because I feel like, well, I perceive that a lot of people are going through that right now, because we're in a new normal, new standards of doing things. And many people have had multiple streams of income, but now it's a whole nother level of zoning in on what is this going to manifest. So can you just elaborate more with how that was for you and how side people that have side hustles now should make a shift?
For the most part, it's all about alignment. And I know that that word is being tossed around, but when you get clear about your feelings, you know, because I love to, if you get really clear about what you feel, do you like it or you don't like it? I had a passion of helping women, but I was devaluing the brilliance within me. I didn't see people valuing legal, even though they need it, right? And when I was working in a mastermind, legal would always show up and I would always have something to say, even though I wanted to be the organizer girl or I wanted to be the popular brand builder or whatever. But legal is what I do naturally, you know? So when I gave myself, I just said, just try it. What you feel like, if you remove, I this would sometimes, if you're multi-passionate like such as myself, you write down every single thing that you want to do, and then you take it away. You say, okay, what's the top 10? Okay, what's the top 5? Okay, what's the top 3? Okay, what's the one thing that if I was forced to do this for the rest of my life, which one will it be? I'm very passionate about a lot of stuff, but I'm very passionate about law because I look at life, I look at business as a game. And in every game, even as a former competitive basketball player, I'm 6 feet tall, every game has rules and referees and players and playlists, right? So I was just like, if you took anything away, I still am a lawyer because I truly believe that if the devil was in the details, he's read the statutes, period.
So getting that clarity was the game changer. And then let's talk about systems because I do believe that is a do. So, from a legal perspective, can you touch upon the importance of systems, even if you're a solopreneur, if you're starting out by yourself? What are some things to think about, to address, and things of that nature from a legal perspective?
From a legal perspective, the biggest thing that you need as a system is a standard operating procedure. It's kind of like your rule book of success. We're going to hire this person, we're only going to hire employees, or we're only going to hire independent contractors with businesses, or we're only going to have interns who are getting credit. you know that's a system that if there's ever an issue, you can always look to your rule book, if you will, your handbook, your employee handbook, your business operating procedure book, your SOPs, and say, no, that this is a necessity. So that's one, is having some standard operating procedure in place with regards to hiring people, with regards to firing people, with regards to, are you going to have allow people to have a return policy? What's going to happen if there's a chargeback? Are you going to allow anybody to become your partner, or are you going to set boundaries in place from the legal perspective, right? So when you're having the standard operating procedures of how you're going to do business, how you're going to have employee intake. Another thing to me that's standard is to have insurance, because you need to protect your assets, period. So if you're working a lot with people or you're in event planning, then you need to get someone else's money. If you're going to be down with OPP, I want you to be down with other people's property with regards to insurance. Because if you don't have insurance, then you become self-funded. You know what that means? When someone comes for you, they'll dig into your assets. And we don't want that. It's all about mitigation, de-risking your business. And that's one of the biggies that you need to do with the SOPs and the insurance. And then another is that always have a contract. I want you to just understand. I truly believe that the person who writes the contract controls the relationship. Always remember that. You write the contract, you control the relationship. What do you mean, Toni? Because if I write the contract, I'm dictating to you how you're getting paid, how, if there's a squabble, what state you have to go to, what I'm going to dictate with regards to what's confidential information, because I've defined it. And, whether or not, if it doesn't work out, whether I'm going to have 7 days or 7 weeks to discharge you. But everything is negotiable. But for the most part, I notice that a lot of people do not understand the legal side, uh, and I get it, but I'm like, when you acting like a boss, you know, you understand that you got to do some hard things to get to the things that you really want. And some of the hard things in a game of success is the rules and the regulators. And if you don't respect the rules or the regulators, you'll get discharged from the game, and you might get fines and penalties, and you might get expunged, and you might even end up in jail because you didn't know. Like, that's one thing to me. If you're going to do some standard operating procedures, it's respecting the rules. Oh, yeah. Pay Uncle Sam, and having your own standard operating procedure, which includes creating your own contracts.
So let's get into a few don'ts. Like, what don't the listeners need to do, and what do you want them to keep in mind to avoid or just know not to do? Like, what is their rule of thumb when they're working their side hustle, be it starting their side hustle or just up leveling their current side hustle?
Well, I'll just say one is don't wait too late before you file a federal trademark application to protect your brand. I get way too many people contacting me because they use a particular brand for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, but they never registered it. Then they want to register a federal trademark protection for it. And now other people are using it. That's always the quandary, as, do I protect this brand name? Do I not protect the brand name? Do I protect it? And I tell people all the time, once you get to the point where you encounter a brand name, because it's all about the name, that you don't want anyone else to use. Like, you want to preserve it and reserve it for yourself, because that's your identifier. Like, if we're sticking with my business game of success, name the name is gives you the fame, and the fame helps you up level your game, because the more people who like you, know you, and trust you, and identify you as the go-to person, or identify the name of your brand as that go-to brand to do maybe clothing, or to do conferences, or to do branding, or to do retreats, you don't want someone else to slide in and take pieces of your intellectual property, including a name of a brand. But the longer you wait, the less it's going to be respected. Because the longer you wait to get a federal trademark, then other people can replicate it. And you cannot successfully send someone a cease and desist letter without a federal trademark registration certificate, period. It's just not going to happen. You'll just be wasting your money. Every once in a while, somebody will listen. But for the most part, kind of like tenants, renters who know the laws better than the landlord, they will squat on your branded trademark,
Well, we don't
and
want
they'll
that.
take the domains and do everything else. So
Yeah.
that's one of that's a biggie, whether you're up leveling or starting, because sometimes we come up with something that's amazing and we wait. I get too many DMs, and they're like, I've been using it for 5 years, and now someone else is using it. And I'm like, there's not a darn thing I can do when there's no federal registration. So that's one with regards to intellectual property, because we don't always talk about it. I graduated in 1998. And I knew enough about intellectual property, but I knew it from the music side because I'm a musician. I write music. My husband's a producer. We do a lot with entertainers and creatives, right? But they never really talked about the name. But when you really appreciate the name will give you that niche, it give you the authority, it can become your moneymaker. And also, if you register it, it gives you that exclusivity. So that's one of the things I want you to really think about is the name. Another thing that comes up a lot is that sometimes what happens is that people start a business with their homie, their lover, their friend without an agreement. Don't do that. I want you to negotiate with your friends and family just as much as, or if not more, than if you're negotiating with a complete stranger. because emotions and sentiments will keep you sidelined and you won't really think about the parameters. How are they with money? If we ever get into an argument, or will they respect me? Or, if things go to the left, or if I have to get a business divorce, I need you to understand that sometimes, oftentimes, money changes things. And thirdly, I really want you to, even in the midst of your startup or your level up, I want you to start considering a succession plan. Will you sell your company? Will you transfer it to family members, or maybe a family trust, where you assign the income to a family trust? What will you do? Because you don't want to hustle forever. And if we're building wealth ourselves and we're thinking about having a legacy of wealth, because we have a legacy of brokenness and liability. So now the big shift, the major shift, is to have a legacy of wealth, because many answers all things. At least that's what it's telling me in the Bible, in Ecclesiastes 10:19. So we have to make sure that if we're going to use our business as an asset in our wealth building portfolio, then what is the game plan? What's the strategic plan? How long are we going to monetize it? Are we going to sell it? Are we going to have it as a bequest? Or is it going to die when we lose interest? And there's so many people, like over 500,000 companies right now that have baby boomers who are getting so old and they don't know what to do. And most of us who are younger don't know that we can just scoop up their companies. We don't always have to keep starting. All we got to do is maybe strategize and up level.
Strategy is key. So would you please share like a suggested timeline for trademarking your side gig? I know you touched upon it, but I also know you have a little more detail behind that as well.
It really depends. There's a lot of people, like last year in 2020, over almost 750,000 people filed a trademark. But just as many people, there's more people who actually started a company without a trademark. So it really depends. When you decide that this is more than a hustle, it's more than stacking paper and getting paid. This is like, no, this is my legacy, because that intellectual property is legacy. Like when you get to the point where you're like, I'm building upon this land, you don't really want to build a business on land that you don't own. And intellectual property is land. That name is land. So with everything else that you own, business, car, everyone got receipts. You need to get receipts for the name that you own so that it don't get cloned, right? So there's really no timeline. The sooner the better with regards to it. It does take up to a year for it to go through the process. But the sooner that you decide that this is my territory, this is my name, it's giving me my authority, it's my money maker, it's giving me my exclusive rights, that's when you file the trademark for it, when you get known for it. You know what I mean? Because once you get known, that brand recognition, you want it to be yours. And the only way that you can make sure it's yours is with a federal trademark application.
Thank you for going into more detail. That's awesome. Would you please share the contracts and agreements baseline and milestone stages that professionals should create when managing their side hustle? I know you mentioned the agreement earlier, but anything else that you can add to that?
Most people, when they're on their side hustle, unless they're service providers, a lot of people are online hustlers. So if you're online, you're collecting people's information. When you're getting started, you definitely need terms of conditions, because trust me, the worst thing in the world is for someone to steal your content, your intellectual property, your how to, whatever you do so well. So you need a terms and conditions, like you can use it, but you can't replicate it. That's where the terms come into play. Conditions are where I have something, I'm not gifting it, but they buy a certain access. So there's conditions of the access. If you find out that they're replicating, then you want to cease and desist on them for replicating your copywritten information, right? So you need definitely a terms and conditions. That's one, that's an agreement. You need a privacy notice if you're online and you're collecting people's information and you don't know where your clients are going to come. You may have people coming from California, they have their own privacy notice, or from European countries, they have the GDPR, with regards to it. But if you have a privacy notice that pretty much says, this is the company, this is, we're not going to use it, or we are going to use cookies. If you ever have any questions with regards to how we collect or why we collect, then you can contact our email. But those are privacy notices that they definitely need. If you're doing service, which most of us are, you need an agreement called a service agreement that says, I'm going to promise you to do this. This helps you because there is going to be a client who thinks that they can get a trademark and then they want, an estate plan, and then they want you to review contracts. Oops. Maybe that's just me, but you're going to find a client who is going to do something what we call mission creep in nonprofit world, where they hire you for one thing but then they want so many different things. That's where the service agreement comes in. So if you're going to be a ghostwriter for someone, you need a service agreement for a writing book collaboration. If you're going to be a publisher for someone, you need to put boundaries in place to let your client know what you are going to do and what you're not going to do for that particular money, and so you may end up hiring someone. In the beginning, the answer to who will be you. Trust me, you're going to be the mail clerk and the secretary. You're going to pick up the phone. You are going to write the emails. You're going to learn a lot about things that ultimately you are going to be able to delegate. But in the beginning, it's you. And so when you get a chance to hire other people, we call it an independent contractor agreement. And that's, once again, now you're telling the person, I'm hiring you to do this type of work. And don't be specific about hours, because the more hourly they look with a certain amount of money per hour, then it starts looking like you're their employer. And you're not going to be their employer. You're not going to dictate when they're going to start, when they're going to stop. You're going to hire them for a particular project or a particular task. Okay. So that's one of the top things you need. And one more, the fifth one, would be a non-disclosure agreement. Because if you are going to confide, or you are going to, as they say, JV partner, joint venture partner with others, you don't want someone to tell their best friend what you're about to do, because your someone may not care. But if they start divulging what you're doing, or divulging how you're doing it, or divulging maybe your supplier, then guess what? That specialness that makes you different is then can be used by others, and then they might jump out and do exactly what you wanted to do. So once again, I would definitely say you need a service agreement. You definitely need an independent contractor agreement. You definitely need a non-disclosure agreement anytime you're confiding secrets, confidential information. If you're online, you need a privacy notice, especially when you're collecting other people's information, just to let people know that you're not going to sell their stuff, or if you are going to sell their stuff. And you need a terms and conditions, and also a terms of use, right? Like I tell people, hey, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer unless you paid me, And that's where you're just setting the boundaries. And that's one of the big things as the boss of your business. You have to set the parameters, the vision, the mission, and most importantly, boundaries.
Thank you. And just to
Mhm.
clarify, will you please define what service providers are?
Well, service providers pretty much are people who are doing service for others, period. So if you're a hairdresser, you're technically a service provider. If you're a consultant, you're a service provider. If you are a tutor, you're a service provider. If you are a special woman who likes doing special things for a special amount of money for a certain type of dude or woman, you're a service provider. So anytime you're providing services for other people, you're pretty much a service provider. Even if you're in food or nail salons, it's pretty much a service provider. Some people pay for access to a program or a product, but for the most part, most of us are making our money as a provider of services.
Thank you so much. Toni,
Mhm.
what are a few of your favorite productivity tools?
I have none, you know? I am a big proponent of projects. So if I have to do a project, I just have to get it done. You know, I will tell you for the most part, product by product, project by project, if I don't set a milestone in place, I should ask you, what I should do. But I just set, I'm still a little old school, so I still like a lot of paper. And I've gotten to the point where I also have an electronic reminder that reminds me of when certain things are done, what needs to be done, right? So it will say, Toni, set aside your taxes, or Toni, find out whether or not this attorney responded. Those are like my calendars and my deadlines. And then I also put stuff on my phone so that I need it, to always remember that certain things that I need to do. But that productivity type of thing, I can promise you, that's what I would pretty much have to hire for. You know what I mean? If I needed to do something over and above what I'm already doing.
Awesome. Now, would you please share insight into your perspective that you wish more entrepreneurs and solopreneurs had about building wealth for themselves?
Man, let me just say, I, for one, laughed at the whole mindset concept, right? Even though I was an athlete. So I negated the fact that you have to have a winning mindset when you want to be a champion, or when you don't want to be a bench warmer, or when you want to be a starter. It's always about a competition. But when you are repeatedly used to working for a certain amount of hours and getting a certain amount of money, you're not necessarily activating all that you are and all that who you are. That's the part that I didn't fully appreciate. Mindset matters. Actually, like, I think 84 to 90% of success is based on your mindset. Your mindset that you're worthy of having a business that is powerful and profitable, that you're worthy of making $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a month. That's a mindset. When I first got started in 2012, I'll never forget it. All I wanted to do was make an extra $500 a month so I can have some money extra after I paid down my law school debt. And so I can help my mom, who was alive at the time, so that she can get cable and she can have a cell phone. Because by then I was raising a family and I had a lot of debt, but I still wanted to help her, even in her latter years. But I had this mindset for whatever reason, probably because I was already indoctrinated, of making only $500 to $750 a month as an adjunct professor. And that kept me low for a long time. I even hired a business coach, and she gave me a walkthrough plan on how I can sell, I don't know, business services and trademarking services, and have my boss lady mastermind. And it was like $1,500, and you can sell it or have it on sale for $1,200, right? I could not sell that program to save my life because I didn't think I was worthy. And I didn't know that I didn't think I was worthy because of the conversations I obviously had with myself. And being from the post section, I know how to spell, but we didn't have options, we didn't have resources. So the post section, where I was, living in government housing, and post section where I know what a food stamp looked like, and we knew what, social workers were, because at one point I was living in foster care. So when you have that background, I need you to understand, it may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but eventually your mindset is going to serve as a mind block to you making monumental success. And you're going to have to slay that giant that's keeping you content. I'm even a church girl. Nobody really talked about millions. They made it sound like Jesus is going to open up the door and the floodgates of heaven and stuff like that. So when you have that welfare mentality that someone's going to open up the floodgates and it's just going to happen, it's going to be very hard for you to understand that you got to build wealth yourself. You got to set the parameters. You got to do the hard work. But that mindset, once you work on that mindset, man, a mindset is a terrible thing to waste, but it's a beautiful thing to master. You have dominion over that mindset. You have to work on the mindset. I want you to also know that your brain doesn't know the difference. That's why the the beauty and the gift of imagination availeth much. If you can just imagine yourself, like I tell my sister girls, act like a boss, act like a, we'll just keep it clean. You know what I mean? Like a brilliantly aligned woman slaying entrepreneurship, or a brilliantly aligned warrior male slaying entrepreneurship. You know, when you are acting like a boss, like you have it, you're worthy of it, you can do all things, you're meant for it, you're the trailblazer of your success. Nothing can stop you. You can overcome. You're more than an overcomer. You're a wealth builder in your family. When you start thinking like that and speaking like that, that's what shifts. That's what shifted for me. It's the language that you tell yourself. It's you facing your truth and seeing what is truth, what is your truth, not what you heard or what you saw or what you caught, but what is your truth as the boss, the brilliant and brilliantly aligned woman or warrior that's slaying entrepreneurship. Not slaying because it's something to do or something to hustle, but this is your avenue to get those coins, to get the security, to get the wealth, to get the notoriety, to get the checks. That is going to change everything for yourself, your children, and your children's children. That's the biggest shift that I wish that I had known about. I probably wouldn't have wasted about 10 years. But now that I know better, and now once your brain gets to that point where you need to be, where you really do act like the boss that you are, you can never go back to a pawn mentality ever.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being so transparent and sharing that journey for you. Thank you. Now, before you sign off, can you please share with the listeners some ways that they can continue to stay informed on how legal aspects or legal entities to make sure that they are staying bossed up in their side hustle and their, as you always encourage in your group, side hustles can be built to be sold. Not everyone is on that page. You share the difference, but for someone that wants to go down that path, what do you recommend that they do to keep their that legal muscle exercised and they're in the know and they understand their rights and what they need to be aware of?
Yes. One, if you are a new person, we always have lawyers, we're almost like closet social workers until we boss up a little bit. So you can always take a course. We have like something called Legally Launch. We also have a book called Handle Your Business. It goes over the basics with regards to the business entity, who to stay away from with regards to partners, and protecting your intellectual property, right? But there's always, like for me, we have something called free legal strategies. I have a group. It's strictly legal, because legal, remember, to me, business is a game, and the legalities impacts and affects everything, right? So when you just know the legalities, I need you to also know that when you're building wealth, a wealthy business, a bankable business, a profitable business, something that you can sell, because you don't want to hustle forever, you know, there's something called, you hear it, LOI, which is a letter of intent. Letter of intent is where you're saying, I want to buy, or someone says they want to buy from you. But with the letter of intent, the business owner to business owner, but there's always a legal due diligence. And with that legal due diligence is where they're saying, did you pay your taxes? God forbid, definitely, even as a side hustler, I need you to understand that you are a business owner. There's some tax loopholes, an attorney, a tax attorney, a regular attorney, business attorney, or even accountant, even a bookkeeper can really help you appreciate your tax loopholes. Also, with regards to, just knowing that legal is in everything. I can't really think of a situation where legal's not in. Where people say, let's talk about the legal side. I'm like, legal, remember, this is what Maria Angel had told us years ago in law school, and I've since picked it up, is that law is like a jealous mistress, right? Whether you like her or not, as soon as you engage, she's into you. So you're going to have to know her moves because you can't ignore her. As soon as you decide that you're going to do a side hustle, you decide that you're going to get money gasms from somebody based on what you do, she's already attached to you and you can't get rid of her. So you're either like her or love her. You have to appreciate what her rules are and what she can do for you. See, legal will always protect you if you respect her rules. The minute you show that you disrespect her rules is the minute she will become a pariah. She'll be a predator. She will nitpick. She will bring her regulators to regulate you, to look at your numbers, to look at your books. So you always want to appreciate her, or at least stay below the radar. Because once she sees you as a person who's not on her team or disrespectful of her presence, then that's when it becomes a problem. Not a problem, a problem. It's a legal issue that you're going to have to pay more money for. So always remember, legal does not disengage just because you do.
Please share how the listeners can get in touch with you.
Yes, the easiest way to get in contact with me is Toni Moore ESQ, ToniMooreESQ.com. You can also even get like our Legally Chic, handbook that's called Legally Launch. And you'll see that I'm on social media on the legal side of my life as Toni Moore ESQ. And also if you ever have any questions or you need some guidance, but you don't want to pay like an arm and a leg for attorneys because we ain't cheap, we do have the Legally Chic Boutique that you can access at Toni Moore ESQ as well.
Thank you. I genuinely appreciate your support, you sharing these wisdom, these gems with the listeners. I hope that if it just impacts one listener, then it's time well spent. And listeners, you can find me, Michelle Beatty, at CareerTipper and SkillsRecharge.com. Please listen and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed this episode and any other episode. If you do, please share with fellow goal getters and leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Thanks so much for joining us today.